Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, social media, sports, everything really, depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. You will recognize my guest from season 2 of The Boys. The first 3 episodes just kind of released on Amazon Prime, and then week by week, we're going to get the upcoming episodes. We are with Abraham Lim. Abraham, welcome to Popternative, man.
What's up, man? Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for coming on the show. I mean, the first 3 episodes kind of dropped. We're introduced to your character, and it's kind of like the term, you know, the term like that escalated quickly.
That escalated real quickly.
Yeah, it did.
Very, very quickly.
I know. And we'll get to it. But for you specifically, for storytelling and acting, when did that kind of start out for you?
You know, honestly, it kind of just happened randomly. It's kind of like that stereotypically Asian story about like my parents very much pushed me towards academia and that world. And I was like kind of socialized and bred to go to law school. Yeah. But I actually sang growing up all my life. Like I loved singing. And so I was just like, hey, Mom, before I do this, before I take on a 6-figure debt for law school, I was like, just give me a year. And if nothing happens, and back then I was a lot bolder and a lot less, jaded as I am now. Back then I had no fear in the world. So I was determined. And so within 4 months or so, I got on the show called The Glee Project, which was a competition series to get on Glee.
Yeah.
But that obviously involves acting. And I found it to be an extension of singing, like a different branch of it and of storytelling. And I just loved it so much. So I started acting about like 8 years ago. Almost. Yeah. And so I've just been kind of like trekking away in LA and working, going from job to job to job. But then this one happened to be like a bigger deal than I expected, which is exciting and also terrifying.
I mean, people are kind of calling it kind of like people use the term like breakthrough roles. Like as a storyteller, what do you kind of think about that when it's kind of tossed around? Because it's technically true, right? Like people kind of watch The Boys. They've never maybe seen you before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's really interesting because on the one hand, you do understand because I mean the show it's a huge show. It was Amazon's biggest show last year.
It's the talk of the town.
Yeah, and within even within all the superhero shows across different platforms and channels and networks and stuff like that, it showed the most like steady amount of growth throughout season 1 at least.
Absolutely.
And so I totally understand why people would say that because it is definitely a more widely seen show, but I've worked quite a bit, and so I don't get offended by it, but I'm just like, yeah,
I feel like that's a misconception of the industry too, though, Abraham, because It's like the whole aspect of like, oh, like you've been acting for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
But like, people just see you on The Boys and they just assume that like that's like one of your first jobs as an actor.
But no offense taken, but yeah, it's so funny. They're like, oh my gosh, I hope we can see you on TV again. And I'm like, yeah, just check out the resume. You can check out whatever you want. But yeah, but I mean, that's how it is nowadays, right? I mean, we live in such a social media, in demand world. Yep. And so, you come out with one thing. And I think that's the hard part about one of the hard things about being an actor is that like, you work on something and you put something out and you have to kind of have things coming out consistently to ride any sort of momentum whatsoever. So, but yeah, man, it's super flattering. I love that people are watching the show. It's a great show. I'm a fan myself.
Absolutely. We're going to get into your character because there's some stuff we got to talk about.
There's some stuff.
But before that, so you were like the 4th Boys guest on my show.
Oh, yeah?
So I've interviewed Jordana LaJoie, plays Sherry. I've interviewed Nathan Mitchell, who's Black Noir.
Who is the best?
Yes. And I interviewed Derek Robertson, who's the co-creator of The Boys.
Oh, my goodness.
And here's 2 things I've kind of noticed about The Boys. And I kind of want your opinion on it, being like a cast member and if you see it. So season 1 came out last year, and straight up, like there were trailers of it and like people knew about it, but this was just like word of mouth. Like, it just kind of like chain reaction. Like, one person was like, you have to watch The Boys. And then like I watched it, and then I told someone else. And then it was just like a word of mouth explosion.
Totally. I 1000% agree with you. I mean, last year, obviously, we weren't going through like a global pandemic, but I know that they pushed it like crazy at Comic-Con. I mean, you saw billboards everywhere. The boys were like pretty much sick over Comic-Con.
But we'd be at like I'm in Canada, right? I work in hockey. We'd be at like a hockey rink, and like we'd be like just talking about a show. Like, we'd just be like, man, this show, The Boys, like
and you see that. And you see that word of mouth happening with the show, which is super cool. And I mean, I have a lot of friends too that like are just now binging season 1 and they're about to watch season 2. A lot of my friends, you know, in San Diego and New York and such, and even in Australia. Apparently, Amazon Prime isn't huge in Australia, but I'm working on a show right now in Australia. Nice. My next project, it's a Netflix miniseries, and I'm working on that in Melbourne. But a lot of the Aussies, you know, they weren't familiar with the show, and I think even there too, it's kind of growing through word of mouth. So you're totally right. I agree with you 1,000%.
And then a lot of people didn't realize that it was a graphic novel, so a lot of people then bought the graphic novels after the show came out. So I feel like that's a cool kind of tag team duo there, right? They kind of complemented each other.
Everyone wins, and we want everyone to win, you know?
Absolutely. So, I mean, your character, like, it's nuts, right? And like we said in the beginning, like, it's like that escalated quickly. I mean, you show up, you're her brother, allegedly, and you're a soup. You have powers.
Right.
But you're
Which is pretty gnarly, right? Like,
you're like misunderstood, like, right away. Like, are you a good guy? Are you a super terrorist, like they're calling him? Like, who are you, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think when you first meet Kenji, you know, you obviously you realize that he is Kimiko's long lost brother. You know, when they after they were separated, they hadn't seen each other for years, and but you know, I that's a hard question to answer just because I don't think anyone is wholly evil or bad, and I don't think anyone's wholly you know, good either. I think we all have, you know, bits and pieces of that in each other, and you definitely see that in Kenji because he genuinely believes that he is standing for his convictions and his morals and his ideals. And really that's all he knows. And so, you know, if that's all you know, how can you really believe in anything else? And, you know, he's someone that's really strong in his convictions and so, and acts on them. So, I mean, I never go into judgment for a character, you know, when I start a job, but like, I actually really admire a lot about him, not the terrorist aspect of it, obviously, but, yeah, and obviously you see that love for his sister.
But how do you prepare for a role like that? Like, what kind of goes through your mind, right? Because it's a different role, right? Because like you're not like, you know, you don't speak much in the beginning. Like you speak to her, but you're not like talking to people that much, right? Yeah. You have this mysterious aspect. You have the power to like destroy anything like with your hands. Like that's the coolest thing. I'm sorry. That's probably one of the coolest things on The Boys. The fact that you can just like
thanks. Oh,
man, you literally were just, you could just do this and then like
and just like fuck Homelander up. Yeah.
Exactly. That's one of the best scenes.
I mean, when I found out that I was gonna fuck up Homelander, I was so excited. I was because no one had done that at that point, and they never showed like he had no weakness or anything like that, and so I was so excited. But how do you go into preparing? Well, you know, The Boys. There are a lot of projects like this that are kind of you know, they keep their things very confidential and top secret, and so obviously, you know, I didn't get a script in advance, but Eric Kripke, our showrunner, is one of the most amazing human beings alive on this planet. And Karen Fukuhara is
like you could say he's a genius.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And Karen Fukuhara is obviously, she is so nice. And that's how you know she's a damn good actor because she is one of the nicest people that I've ever met in LA. And yet she's playing this crazy savage monster. And but they filled me in on backstory as much as they possibly could at that point. Before I went, they offered to have me watch the first season because obviously when I started shooting, the first season actually hadn't premiered yet. You know, so I was starting shooting on season 2 before that even came out. And so, but then also as an actor, you kind of go in and you do all the work that you possibly can. So like, you build a backstory, you work on his physicality, you work on his movement, I really like to tap into like, what does their voice sound like? What does his voice sound like? And you just go off of the audition sites that they give you too. So you just create this entire thing. But the most important thing is being able to like let it go and be as flexible and malleable as possible on a set because the director will direct you possibly and they'll give you different notes and change things around. So yeah.
Your character is probably your character is involved with one of the coolest and most insane TV show scenes of all time. I don't know if, like, in my opinion, like, you could put it up there. I don't know if you can guess what I'm talking about. It involves a mammal.
Oh my God!
Come on,
yeah.
like that. I mean, they showed that, like, that was kind of like, we knew that was happening because they put a clip out before the show got out. But like, that whole sequence,
that was crazy.
How was that the shoot?
That was crazy because we went there. We were shooting in Hamilton, and God, I can't believe I remember that. But we were shooting in Hamilton, and we had that scene involved a chopper, a helicopter, a yacht, and a speedboat. And they had built this, and I had read about the whale in the script, and I was like, how are we doing this? This is all VFX. And they were like, no, we're building a life-size whale. And I was just like, oh, this is not happening. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And they did. There was a way. And we showed up, and there's this massive like whale who is Lucy, rest in peace. But yeah, that was insane. It was Carl Urban, everything from Carl Urban to like driving a speedboat at like 70 miles an hour.
Chase Crawford's just like.
Chase Crawford's just chilling on top of the whale, and they're like stunt sequences and the blood and the guts, man.
But you kind of, when you see his face though, when he's noticing that speedboat's not stopping, I think is like the best thing ever. Like Chase Crawford just gets it out of the park. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, it's so funny, and that's the thing too. I think is that like what Chase did so well is that like this storyline with the boys right now. It's so heavy. Yeah. And like it's moments like that where it's just like kind of like gives you a bit of like brevity in that moment, and people are just he's hilarious. He's great.
Do we get into spoilers right now? Do I have, like what are we doing now? What are you saying, Abraham? Like, are we getting into spoilers? Should we get into some spoilers?
No. Even in like episode 3, you have this whole like heavy thing with like with Kimiko and Kenji, and even.
No, I'm just saying, like we mentioned it on the top. Like, do we mention? Like, I'll put a disc. No, we're not.
Yeah, put a spoiler alert thing for sure. Yeah, because there's a lot.
So your character is no longer with us. It doesn't seem. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where that was like you yell like "ow" when that happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's important too, because that's the first time that whole sequence where like you kind of start liking Stormfront because she's kind of a badass and she's kind of like kind of going head to head with Homelander a little bit, but then you're like, no, you're a bad person. Like you're bad.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like, I've the reception's been so amazing, but I see a lot of people kind of I think a lot of people tend to equate the characters with, then they project that onto the actors if the actor is talented, and Aya Cash is fucking amazing. But yeah, that's the thing. I think a lot of people think like Aya's like awful and evil, and I'm just like, man, it's just a character. I love the passion, but she's so good. And she asked me after every single take, she would be like, hey, are you okay? Like, are you doing okay? Like, and she would check up on me. And the funny thing about it is that not the rooftop sequence, but when we were downstairs and when she threw us through the building into the that apartment, like we were singing musical theater numbers through the opening in the wall between takes. Like she's so much fun and she's so fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a jarring and very traumatic scene, I think, especially for people of color or, anyone watching really.
For sure. Something I just thought of right now was because the dynamic of season 1 and then season 2 of The Boys, in terms of season 1 of The Boys got like dropped, everyone could binge it right away. They want to they change up the marketing tactic a little bit, where it's a bittersweet thing for a lot of fans because they posted 3 episodes and now we have to wait for more. What's kind of the mind frame? What do you think about kind of an actor on the show? How do you prepare for that? Because then the social media marketing is completely different, right? Because there's certain things you can't post about that maybe if everything was released, maybe you could. You know what I mean? Like it's interesting, right?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I totally get it because I love binging shows. I love binging, series on Netflix and Amazon and everything like that. But that being said, and this is, I don't know if this is the reason why. I can't speak for Amazon or anyone at, and any of the executives there, but in my opinion, it does make sense to do that because, we are in the midst of a global pandemic. And I think that, if they've released everything at once, it kind of would have just been, and obviously production on season 3 is pushed. And congratulations to everyone on season 3 pickup. But yeah, obviously that's been pushed. So, that might delay that. So I think, they wanted people to have something for a little bit longer while they, worked on season 3 and I got that out. I don't know if that's the reason, but it sounds like that to me.
Well, no, because I find it interesting because, you're an actor, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like you're a storyteller because you sing too. Singing is storytelling. Dancing is also storytelling too. We've had some people saying like, oh, I started dancing. So the storytelling kind of came like later because I danced first. I'm like, no, like dancing is definitely storytelling. So,
Absolutely.
I'm just curious, like, because like a big part of your job is like you go away, like there's the audition process and then you get the role, you film the role, you do all that, right? But then part of the job is like press and social media and kind of getting it out there, right? And I just find like the way they kind of decided to post 3 and then week by week, there's different, like depending on, the situation, there's kind of different ways actors kind of handle that with their social media, you know what I mean? Right. They could post consistently about certain things like every week. They could wait a little bit, you know what I mean? Like I'm just saying, like there's different strategies that go into it. I have a master's in communication, so I always think of this stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're very good. You're very, very good at interviewing. Actually, the art of interview is like nailed down. But no, I agree, man. But I think we all just kind of have to, adapt. Trust me. I want to see the rest of the season so bad, right? But I also think too. I remember even with, were you a Game of Thrones fan?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like I was like a diehard Game of Thrones fan.
We interviewed Miltos Yarolamu, who played Serial Forel.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
But yeah, but like I would be so fiending for that next week's episode, like week after week, and while we hate it because of just like the day and age that we're in.
Stranger Things can't do it. I don't know what Netflix will do, but you can't do that with Stranger Things. I hope
you can't do that with Stranger Things. I think there are certain shows that are specifically like made for binging. I think Stranger Things is one of them, but I think The Boys, it could be either or because it is also quite heavy as well.
Well, I do want more. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, right? Like I did watch 3 episodes and I was like, I want more right now. Like what the hell?
For sure.
For sure. I mean? But Stranger Things, they can't do that to us. Like,
no.
Sorry, I can't.
No. Yeah. So many of Netflix's programming, I think, is like specifically made for binging that I think if they ever did that, it would just be weird.
You can associate The Boys with a lot of like things, a lot of words, but there's something very like cool and very unique about it. And I think it has to do with the fact that it's one of a couple of shows that are out right now, like The Umbrella Academy is another one, that's basically like transforming the superhero genre.
1000%. I actually recently binged through Umbrella Academy.
It's fantastic. I love it so much.
It's a fun show. I think what I've always said about The Boys is that like, when you look at different shows, when you look at Umbrella Academy, when you look at Watchmen, when you watch all these different shows, right? I think The Boys is the one to kind of, it's unflinching. It's uncompromising.
That's a good word.
Yeah, it has a lot to say about the world, but it's not a specific world. It's a bit more broad, but it is saying something, and a lot of things actually. And even with this season, it's tackling things like white nationalism, white supremacy. It's tackling systemic racism. It's tackling, and the first season, obviously, with Starlight's character, they tackled,
abuse.
Yeah, sexual abuse and sexual harassment, especially in the workplace towards women, but like the whole Me Too movement, and
it's still, we don't know because again we're waiting for 5 more episodes. But I wouldn't be surprised if that shows up again. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's the thing too, is that it's not afraid to go there, especially because of the comic books. I heard the comic books are way more, it's.
Oh, Darren Robertson was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, like the comic book.
Yeah, but it's not afraid to go there, but it's also fun, and it's cool, and it's a sexy show at the same time too. You know what I mean? It kind of melds all those things together. So it's not like super like unapproachable highbrow, and it's not kind of just like, popcorn filler.
But like, here's the thing: you're on a TV show. You're on like Abraham Lim stars on The Boys, which is on Amazon Prime, and it's one of the biggest TV shows. And
Right.
we talked about the whole scene with like, it's you guys are basically filming movies. Like
That's
the
what it
production
feels like
aspect
on
is
set,
insane, man.
I have to tell you, that's what it feels like. I've worked on a lot of sets, and I have never been on a set on a television show at that, where we had like the production value on that show is insane. And I think you see it, you see it in the results, but yeah, they work so hard. That crew is so fantastic. They would be there sometimes, because crews, I don't think they get enough credit. They get there before us, they leave after us. And, we're working sometimes like, 14, 15-hour days. So that means that they're there for like 16, sometimes. And they work tirelessly, and it truly is a labor of love. So that's why I'm so glad that, it's been received the way it has, because people that are working on that show, we all love that show.
That's great.
We're not there just for, shits and giggles. We genuinely love it. And I hope people can tell that a lot of work went into it. So,
well, it's amazing, and we are excited for more episodes of The Boys. We want it.
Yes.
We want it now. Abraham, thank you so much for coming on Popternative, man. This is great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Stay safe, stay healthy, be happy.
Absolutely. Where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
My social media on Twitter, it is at Real Abraham Lim, Lim as in Michael, and
Real,
Instagram,
so not fake.
real, not all these fake ones out there. And my Instagram is at The Real Abraham without the limb.
Well, congratulations on your character, man, because so cool, so fun, so unique, so intimidating. Like, you brought so much to the character, man. And seriously, I just want to say, man, like, that's fantastic stuff, man. So good job on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative. For previous episodes, you can catch Abraham Lim and the rest of the amazing cast in The Boys. Season 2 is available now on Amazon Prime. Until next time, this is Abraham Lim and Petey Beats.
Thank you.
Signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.